possible harm that could come from not wearing masks. Singers, musicians, theater kids, we're a little bit different in more ways than one, but we tend to have much louder, more boisterous speaking and talking. If we don't have masks, we're simply not going to have choir. We talk about the sports seasons, and I totally feel for those kids. They at least have more than one game per season. We get one winter concert, we get one madrigal, we get one spring concert, and one Pops and Pie. That's 4 for the entire year. If half my kids are out because they're sick, we can't do our concerts as well either. So I feel for everyone around in this. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the news articles throughout the world about choirs that have decided to practice without a mask. It has not gone well. The first one was in Washington State. About 60 people were in the rehearsal. Over 40 of them got COVID, 2 of them died. There was just a report of a choir in Spain last week. 40 people rehearsing indoors without masks. Over 30 of them have COVID. We cannot have that in our choir room, and we cannot spread it to the other students. There are many studies that show masks work. I was disgusted and appalled to hear people state that there's no studies that show that. There are plenty. I sent it to all of you. I'm not sure if you had time to watch through that video or not. The flu is coming. I don't think it's a bad thing to keep masks around. I can tell you as a teacher how many times we have had parents send kids to school knowing full well that they have the flu and that they're sick. It wouldn't hurt at all to keep masks around for the duration and through flu season. It would help us out greatly for keeping the transmission down of both flu and COVID. I cannot wait to not have to wear this mask. It is detrimental to singing. It's detrimental to display emotion to each other, to have a concert performance. All I want to do is sing without a mask. I'm not going to. I'm gonna keep it on for as long as we have to. This is what's protecting us, and I want my students healthy so that maybe someday we can have a concert again and be able to sing full voice.
Thank you.
My name is Molly Luger, and I'm actually here for my daughter. I don't like conflict. She asked me to read this. This was something that she wanted to do tonight, but she's in quarantine. Good evening. I couldn't be more grateful to be a Golden Hawk. High school has brought me some of my most cherished experiences, opportunities, and people. It is a bittersweet that I am in the midst of my senior year. These are not simple times, and uncertainty lingers in the air. Unquestionably, there is a lot of risk. The health and safety of others, in-person learning, extracurricular activities, and countless other things. I advocate for the continuation of a face covering mandate because I want to ensure we are all doing everything in our power to curb the spread of COVID-19. I, along with many others, am experiencing or have experienced a 2-week quarantine this year. Face masks are new to everyone. We're in this together. We ought to continue doing everything in our power to ensure the safety of others and the best likelihood to continue having events and activities that we all enjoy. I'm willing to take whatever precautions are necessary to keep others safe, school in person, and to keep being able to do some of my favorite things with some of my favorite people. I will wear my mask for my grandparents, my family, and friends. my school year, my sports seasons, and countless other things. Most importantly, through these unprecedented times, let us all love one another. Be gentle with each other's hearts and find our gratefuls no matter the circumstances. Let's do it for each other. Thank you all for serving. I know this hasn't been easy.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christy Newton. I was going to read this little thing, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to tell you a little story. I work at the hospital, and I don't think any of you guys are in healthcare. I'm not totally sure, but I don't think so. And over the weekend, I took care of a patient whose mother is probably going to die, if she didn't already today, from COVID. And I came home from work, and I told my husband, you know, it's been a really rough day. I was texting with this woman's nurse all day, back and forth, and you know, she's not doing well. And this woman's younger than me. She's younger than me. And he said, the first thing he said to me was, "What else is wrong with her?" And it just hit me like, people that aren't in healthcare and don't see it, I think we're starting to get lax. And we read all the things, and we hear from the guidelines from the CDC and the Washington County Public Health, which is like warms my heart. I'm so glad they said that. But I think if it's not in your face, you don't see it. But it's there, and it's heartbreaking. And we don't really have any other options. The virtual academy's closed now, right? I tried that. I'm not a teacher. I mean, more power to the teachers. It worked like a week, and we were all in tears. So I sent my kids back because I knew they could wear masks. And let me tell you, they have blossomed. They don't care about wearing the mask. They are so excited to be with their friends, so excited to be at school. I mean, they're totally different kids. I don't want to have to take them back out. And I will if masks aren't mandated, but I don't want to because I'm not a good teacher. But I didn't want to read all the CDC stuff. I just wanted to tell you that story, that just to keep in mind that I know people throw facts and numbers and statistics, but there are people out there in this community within us that it's not going well for them. And so I know you want to do what's best for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going, guys? I was here before, I think, about a month and a half ago. I don't have a letter this time, so I wrote a few things down so I can keep my thoughts straight. I'm Jared Miller. I know all of you, and you know me. My wife Mandy and I live in the district, have 4 kids at the different centers. So a month ago we were here talking about this, and now we're back talking about it. I want to go back quick to March. When this started, you know, I'm self-employed. My wife works at the hospital, so we've been working the whole time. We didn't have a choice. You starve or you work. And I think there was a lot of people in that situation. We didn't have a choice. You just went to work. The other thing is, I realized when we were here before that I really only pay close attention to a lot of other people's lives when it directly impacts my life. So, yes, I have close friends, and I have fringe friends, and I have acquaintances, but I don't pay close attention to how they monitor their lives until it directly affects mine. In the last month and a half, it's directly affected mine. So then what happens is I start paying closer attention to what everyone else is doing. What I quickly find is that the same people that are mandating or recommending mandates for masking, both in school and in the communities, there's a huge discrepancy from what I've seen in the last 6 weeks between what they're saying here and what they're doing out in public. And I'm not going to call people out up here. You asked us not to, and I don't want to. But I will say this. If someone steps up and says to my kid, hey, you need to follow this and this and this instruction so that you can have a sports season, a full year at school, so that you can have health, etc. But then on the weekends, I go to a party and their kid's there without a mask, not just once, but weekend after weekend after weekend. That doesn't sit with me at all, not a bit. And I'm getting tired of it, really quick. I also start paying close attention to the teachers that are begging us for our safety to mandate masks. And I noticed that over the summer, a lot of them traveled. They didn't wear a mask. They post those pictures on social media. Everyone can see them. And I'm asking, how serious is this really if we can go out and we can do all these things, but at school it's absolutely dire that we wear a mask? And that puts me in a position, and my wife as well. And for the teachers at Mid-Prairie that I've dealt with, they have always been straight with me, I feel, and we've tried to be straight back. As much as possible, if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, your kid's acting up in class, I want to be respectful and teach my kids to respect that teacher regardless of what my opinion of their methods are. And I would urge teachers that have dealt with my kids to please call me out if I haven't done that. The problem is, when they're told one thing and then they come home and they say, Dad, we got this and this and this and this person not doing what they're asking me to do, that puts me in a bad spot, very bad spot, and it puts a lot of parents in bad spots. They have to now make a decision. Do I ask my kids to be respectful when a teacher says do this, do this, do this, but then they don't do it in their private life out in public the rest of the time? You can make a lot of arguments that say that it makes a difference if it's at school or if it's not at school, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. You can't have it both ways, I don't feel. And I don't care if you keep the mask mandate in place, but Mr. Pickard said last time that he didn't think it was enforceable. And from what I've seen in the last 6 weeks, I don't think it's enforceable. My son comes home from school and he says, this teacher doesn't care when we don't wear a mask. This teacher doesn't care when we don't wear a mask. And I asked him, specific teachers that I know feel strongly, wear a mask. And he says, they didn't say anything. But miraculously, a week ago, I get an email. Hey, your kid's not following these lessons, these guidelines. And so I reach out to his homeroom teacher and to the administration and say, is this true? Is my son not following the edicts that they're putting out? And the answer was, no, we have no idea. We have never had a problem with your son. So I end up saying, in all reality, especially for the elementary kids, you want to put the mask on the high schoolers? All right, my high school kids can handle it. But my elementary school kid is struggling with it. Can he do it? Yeah, he can do it. But I'm having a very hard time as a parent when I'm watching this day after week after week after week. And where does it end? We don't know. But I'm having a very hard time telling my kids, you have to do this, when they're coming home constantly saying, Dad, these people aren't doing it. These people aren't doing it. And I'm saying, you can't have it both ways. It has to be, they either believe it or they don't. And, you know, not to take umbrage with anything that was said tonight, but you can't say it here, but then not do it with the rest of your life. That's my biggest complaint. I think we've had enough of this. I think it's time to go optional. By all means, make it optional. And if they want to wear them to feel safe, by all means, do it. Please do it. Just don't mandate it for my children, please, unless there's a way to enforce it that's consistent. And I'm telling you, there's not.
Thank you.
Okay, I quickly typed because I won't be able to say what I want to without it. I'm going to take a big step here, and I'm very fearful to do so, but I'm going to do it. I would agree to the point where we all need to be transparent. And what we say and what our kids actually are doing out in public when we're not there is two different stories. And the community sees it, other teachers see it. My legs are shaking. I don't appreciate emails going out, and I've got them saying that we're speaking for a staff, because we don't all feel that way. As you know, I'm very transparent, and I was very uneasy wearing this mask tonight, knowing that some students have been shamed wearing the same one. This is what I wear every day. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm shaking. I am one that wears a mask when required and not when I have an option. You all see the photos of examples of how kids wear them that I shared with you. They're not all wearing them. If you're in the classroom for 30 seconds or a minute or an hour, you're not getting a clear picture. Even in my room, where many wear it incorrectly, kids have not had COVID. I disagree with anyone that say that kids don't complain. Today, any of my associates can tell you I had multiple kids come up, this is the first day, I will add, and ask for a mask break. I have no idea why. If it was from being at home for 2 or 3 days, I don't know. And I gladly gave them one. They even removed themselves from free play to have the break. As far as I know, none of you have been in my room the entire day, so you are not able to speak to seeing that. Same with other teachers. I would also argue that because I don't wear a mask, I don't care. I show my students that I care by hugging them, by letting them sit on my lap. And I don't condemn you for not hugging kids and not letting them sit on your mask and saying that on your lap and saying that you don't care. We all show that we care in a different way. I also would like to say I do fully understand the risk. I have an 85-year-old father, severe asthma, severe COPD. He cannot walk without help. Because of your vote a week ago, and I sent you a picture, he chose to come and attend the volleyball game and would have gladly came without a mask. We had to help him in the door and sit down. Nothing gave him greater pleasure than to be able to be around the kids that he loves. And he has told us, if it means living each day and spending time with my loved ones, that's what I want to do. Do I want to lose him? Absolutely not. I spent the first 3 weeks in quarantine, isolation, staying away from him because I didn't want to be the one to give it to him and let him die. I had to get over that for myself because I was watching him die lonely. I am also a firm believer that young adults that we have in our schools learn about the importance of looking at facial expressions. And we have some great students that just spoke, even though they think differently than me, that learned about facial expression and communicating with each other at a small age. It started at home with their parents, it continued into the classrooms. The video that I shared with you about looking at each other's faces to be able to solve problems, not happening. 75 to 85% of my class has a mask covering their face. And I would also like to share that, I didn't write that down, now I'm going to forget. Anyhow, that's good, thank you. Please take into consideration all views. I know you will. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Jake Snyder. I had sent an email before. I didn't realize tonight was going to be as big of a deal as it was until I had somebody point out some social media stuff to me today. That's why I didn't email you guys. I would have taken the time if I'd known it was going to be this big of a deal. I've sat and listened to everybody talk tonight, just like I did at the last big meeting and whatever. I think especially tonight, I'd like to thank Jared for not standing up here and demanding that you guys do anything. I listen to a lot of other speakers demand you must do what they believe instead of being in it for the team, because that's really a team mentality. And so I thank Jared for that, and I really think Joyce deserves a round of applause for the amount of courage it took to stand up here amongst a lot of her peers that probably have countering opinions. And I think it's really good to hear the other side, because I know, for one, the faculty members that I visit with, there are a lot of faculty members in our district that don't fall in line with the more vocal faculty members. I could stand up here and make comparisons and analogies to ridiculous things like, seatbelts and whatever, but seatbelts don't affect how I drive my car. But it's undeniable that the masks affect how my kids get educated. And I'm thankful that there are other districts in our area, Sigourney, Keota, Waco, that were courageous enough to say, you know what, we have no baseline to go off. And that was a terribly tough decision for you guys, because there was no true baseline. What was the effect going to be? And we had no idea. They took a stance that they were going to see what happened. Waco, 0 sick kids, 4 in quarantine. If you take their enrollment and break it by percentage, they're doing catastrophically better than we are. How is that possible? They don't have any masks on. It's not mandatory. Same thing can be said about Sigourney. Same thing can be said about Keota. And one of the other people that spoke mentioned another district in our conference that has an optional mask mandate. And I would love to hear some statistics on that, because based on everything that we heard from them, we would be led to assume that they're all in quarantine, they're never going to have graduation, they can't play sports, they can't do these things, but we know that's untrue. Because if that was true, it would be all over the news, and it's not. So you have 4 other districts in our area that have completely set a precedent that proves that these masks are really not doing, at minimum, as much as what we think it is. And I feel you guys should reweigh the fact of what it has to do with our children's education, the effect it has on their education versus the net gain. If these other districts can have a completely unaffected education and they don't have all these sick kids, it proves that we don't need all this extra stuff. I just think it's irrefutable proof that the masks are unnecessary and the disruption of my children's education is unnecessary. And we finally have districts that we can look back and actually have a scope of work to look at. So I just encourage you all to take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Maria Jevons, and I've got a 10th grader here at the school. And she spoke a little bit earlier tonight, but one of the things that she has really struggled with this year has been the amount of conflict that this pandemic has revealed. And I would kind of concur with some of the people that talked about how difficult it's been for our kids to see how much animosity this has brought out in our community, and that's been a very tough thing. And I would like to recommend that we continue with the mandatory use of the face masks. I think a weekly assessment of the numbers and this uncertainty of what that will do is not going to be helpful to the kids. I think consistency is something that kids do well with. I think encouraging them to think of their classmates and their teachers and the faculty at the school and how to keep everybody safe is something we should encourage. And I'd like to take out the question of there being a fight every week about whether or not it's going to be mandatory. I don't want this to turn into a game of whack-a-mole where we're chasing this around every week, the district, trying to figure out if we need to keep wearing them or not. And as far as the peer pressure against the masks goes, there's a lot of discord from some of the kids about wearing them. And if it was mandatory, I think it would take a lot of pressure off the kids who want to wear them, but they don't want to be mocked or ridiculed for doing it. So I think for the sake of their mental health, it would be best if they didn't have to deal with that on top of everything else that these kids are dealing with. And thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carrie Schmidt, and I have 2 kids in the district and have been a nurse for over 25 years. I'm sharing this letter that was sent to the school board that I think that needs to be heard by the entire community. It's from the physicians of the Pediatric Associates of the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. They want to express our significant concern for the possibility of the Mid-Prairie School District choosing to remove the mask requirement for their students while at school. We have the pleasure of being physicians for many of your district students. Sending all of your students to school without a hybrid model and then removing the requirement for masks will lead to increased cases in your school and community. As physicians who are seeing children infected with the virus that causes COVID, we strongly encourage you to maintain the mask requirement for your students. We have diagnosed children that are COVID positive. They often have mild symptoms that seem like other illnesses they've had prior to the pandemic. They can seem like regular cold or allergies. And as parents, we send their children to school with these mild symptoms. The only way to prevent the spread of the virus is good hand washing and mask wearing. Physical distancing of 3 to 6 feet is not enough. There is no way to remove the risk of this virus completely, but there are things that we can do to decrease the risk of spreading the virus, and wearing a mask is the most important. A student or staff who tests positive for the virus was shedding the virus and spreading the virus at least 48 hours prior to developing symptoms. So even before they knew they were ill, they were spreading the virus. If a student or staff continues to come to school when they have symptoms, they are spreading the virus. We also know that 25 to 40% of cases of COVID have no symptoms at all. But asymptomatic people can spread the virus if they are not wearing a mask. The mask decreases the spread of the virus while someone is symptomatic or asymptomatic. The mask works in all situations. Without the use of masks in the school setting, entire classrooms will be exposed and need to quarantine. We also know that there is a lot that we don't know about the long-term effects of COVID on those who have been infected. There are concerns about damage to hearts of those infected, with even people who've had only minor symptoms. How that damage will affect that person 20 to 40 years down the line is unknown. We don't know other long-term effects that might also be a problem. COVID is not just a cold. The effects may be longer lasting. If we want to continue to have interactions with other people and have our children attend school, we have to decrease the risk of these situations. The only way is to decrease the risk are wearing masks and social distancing. Education can be more effective if it's uninterrupted with the use of masks in schools. Social health is also a priority for pediatricians. We understand it's important for our children to continue to see their friends. As a district, your goal is the education of the students of your district. That is made possible by keeping the health of your students while living through a pandemic at the forefront of your thoughts as well. Mask wearing at school will keep your students healthy and keep them in the classrooms where they can learn and be with their friends. There are very few things that we can do to change the course of the pandemic. But while children are at school, they need to be wearing masks to help contain the spread of this virus. And this letter is signed by Dr. Joseph Boyson, Dr. Miriam Gardner, Dr. Stacy Grenner, Dr. Ingrid Goldstein, Dr. Jocelyn Hager, Dr. Sam Kinzer, Dr. Michelle Miller, Dr. Rebecca Boslajon, Dr. Danielle Wendell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you all again for bringing us all back together about the same topic. I'm going to start by covering what is bothering me the most, and it's this whole idea that we're divided and there's animosity. I'm just going to give you a real-life example for me. I work in a school as well. I am a teacher. I now work full-time every day of the week, which is a whole new world for me. But I work in a school where masks are optional. That means that both sides, both opinions, both groups of people are heard every day. And I will tell you that the kids that I'm working with are getting an education every day that doesn't revolve around mask wearing. My 4 children, who up to this point in time have never been a disciplinary problem. In fact, they have been role models, they have been leaders, they have been praised up and down. Do you know what has happened in these 4 weeks that we've been wearing these masks? My children have been called out for their behavior because their mask is under their nose. Heard of Grace? A teacher who didn't bother to talk to my child first, but sent her to the principal without talking to her, just sent her there. After speaking to her, acknowledged that, okay, you weren't being disrespectful. This is a child who I sent an email that said she gets huge migraines every day. She's had a migraine for 3 days in a row. She now has to take prescription medication. If you don't believe me that masks are contributing to that, come to my house. My second daughter has been called out for the type of mask she's wearing. It fits her face. We by no means have said to our children, you don't have to leave your mask on. We have said, you absolutely leave that mask on. It is the school rule. We are not those people. We don't believe in masks on our children's faces, not because they're uncomfortable, not because it isn't convenient. If it was just that, I would say, sure. Too bad, put it on your face. It's more than that. I have 2 boys. I have a son who stayed home today. When they called, I said, yeah, he has a headache. He didn't have a headache. He has been crying since the Thursday of the first week of school, don't make me go. A kid who has begged to go to school since he was 3 years old because he doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable saying, hey, I need a break, and he's not getting enough mask breaks. He is not getting the amount of mask breaks we were promised would happen. Kids aren't going outside the way we were promised they would. My last son is enjoying school because his teacher is offering grace and teaching. She is using it as a teachable moment, not as a punishment, not as a way to make my kids feel like they're not doing their job. So there are 2 sides to this. There are. School can't be normal. I'm in a school. I'm cleaning like crazy. I make kids wash their hands nonstop. I keep my distance. But my kids that I'm working with know I love them and care about them. My kids don't feel that this year. I'm sorry, they don't, and we've never had that problem before. So I'm a pretty quiet person most of the time. But this has gotten me worked up because every day I have a conversation with at least one, if not all four of my kids. No, you have to go, and you have to put that mask on. My kids love school, my kids love their teachers, and they don't feel that now. So it's not just about comfort. This is a less than 1% chance that someone's going to die, less than 1% of our population. And we're dividing our whole community, and we're making our kids realize they're not as important as they thought they were. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? With that, I'll turn it back over to Marianne.
So we're going to head and close out the public forum. So we're going to go on to B1, the reevaluation of the face coverings, if that's okay. And so I guess there are a couple of things that, that we're faced with the reevaluation of face coverings is if whether we keep doing what we're doing and mandating the face coverings in the schools, otherwise we can remove the mandate for the masks. And then the other option that we did consider was the decision-making model that was actually sent out, and I hope everyone got a chance to look at it. So the reason why I wanted to make sure that the decision-making model was sent out was, and I had talked to everybody on the school board about it before we sent it out, is first of all, to create awareness and transparency. And then the other option was, if we do keep the masks going, what is the metric for us to ever remove the masks, or else for us to feel comfortable? What does that threshold look like for you guys, and what is that metric? And I know everyone's going to be different. I do understand that, but it is something that we were thinking about, and we just wanted to make sure that we were creating that awareness out there so that we had that option. And it was a third option to consider. It's not approved or anything like that, but we just wanted to have that discussion. So I don't know where everyone stands with regards to the face coverings. I know we are divided. It is kind of sad to see that we can't all come together as one. And I understand that everyone has differing views, and that's okay. And that's okay with me. If you believe differently than I do, that's totally fine. Just respect me just as much as I would respect you. We're all here to advocate for our children. I totally get that, but the 7 of us here, or 6 of us here today, are advocating for all children in the school district. And so this has been really tough. One of the things that I don't want us to do is keep revisiting it month after month after month. That is not something that I'm interested in doing. If we're gonna do something, I would like to have it as a set date, and then ideally for me for the semester, and then look to see what it's going to look like for the spring semester. My concern is the flu season is approaching. I know that there are people that are still struggling with allergies, and so I don't know. I think that's where I am. So we've gotten a lot of emails. The part that concerns me very much so is the emails that say, if you do this and this and this, then we're going to do this. And they're quite threatening, and so that part has been really hard to fathom. We're all in this together. I really want us to work collectively to see what we can do to get this through this year for our kiddos. And I know those kids are so resilient. They're doing such a great job. And it's nice to see some of the kids email us and to let us know their thoughts. But at the same token, for those that advocate for masks, there's the other side that does not advocate for masks. And that's okay. Just like the kiddos, you can agree to disagree. It's okay. And so I guess I struggle with a little bit of it. I don't like the masks. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like them myself. but I'll do it. It's required for me to be at work, so I wear my mask. It's required for me to be, if I meet clients, I gotta wear my mask. If I go to the store, I've gotta wear my mask. I understand that. I guess, I don't know. I wanna keep it the way it is right now. That's my feeling. Is it the right choice? I don't know, but I like the numbers are still down. That makes me feel better. Nobody can say whether it is working or not working. I mean, I've got a kiddo in quarantine right now, and she wore a mask. And so I guess I would like to keep it the way it is until at semester time for me, and then go from there. So who wants to go next?
Thanks, Marianne.
Well, we wanted to talk about where we were with regards to if we wanted to keep it the way it was, if we were, and then the decision-making model is something, a third option to consider, but there are some tweaks I think that we collectively want to make. And so at least for me, I would like to see it in a work session for us to look at the numbers for the decision-making model process. Unless there are others that might feel differently, but for me, that's something that I would like to see tweaked.
Okay, so I have a lot written, but I will spare people. I guess first off, I want to thank everyone for sending emails and for calling. I think I've heard a lot of people say, hey, you know, don't just go with people who are the loudest. And I want everyone to know, I think I've got loud from both sides. And I don't mean that badly. I mean, people are passionate about what they believe. I do want to say it was pretty cool today that one of my good friends who is on the complete opposite side of this mandate, she called me this morning and said, hey, I just would like to pray with you. It's like, how cool is that to have someone in our community? And I just wish that there, you know, this wouldn't be so divisive because we can get along. So I guess when it came down to our school board vote back on the 3rd of August, Mark had said it was kind of two issues. And in my opinion, it's not. I feel like if we're going to be in person, we need to have a face covering mandate. My reasons are because of the CDC, the county public health, a lot of teachers' desires, and then also consistency. And I guess to touch, I won't dwell on each one of those, but I guess I feel like we have kind of the same overreaching goal. We want all of our kids in the buildings. So how do we do that? You know, we want to keep our kids healthy. We want to make sure that we're limiting the spread. I know there's disagreement on how we do that. When we got this email from the public health today, it made me very happy. I did quarantine with my daughter for 2 weeks, and it was really hard. It was probably like the hardest 2 weeks ever. Well, maybe not ever, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. I think my big thing with the public health, and I spoke to a few of you today, so right now Mid-Prairie is following the guidance from the county public health on how we're going to quarantine our kids. And now that we have this new guidance, it's my understanding we're going to follow that. So when we've got the same county public health who is also recommending that students and staff and people that are in the school, and they're recommending that they wear face coverings as well, I just have a hard time understanding, you know, why are we going to agree with them on this recommendation but not that recommendation? I feel like for consistency, we can't just pick and choose this organization, okay, we're going to agree with them there and not agree with them there. I guess that's kind of my opinion. I don't know if we're ever going to talk about the staff survey or not. And I know Mark did a survey, 170 out of 240 responded. And looking at the numbers, yeah, there was I think 14% who wanted voluntary. And then he broke it down into, hey, when we can't social distance, they want masks mandatory, but when they can social distance, it's voluntary. And then there's the third group that it's mandatory all the time. And we look at the percentages, when you're just looking at social distancing alone, if that can't happen, it was like 85% of the staff wanted to have face coverings mandatory. So I thought that was kind of a big number that was kind of important. But again, I know that's 170 out of 240, and that's subjective. I mean, this is based on people's feelings, and I get that. So I guess tonight, for me, is what I'm basing my decision for wanting to have the face coverings remain mandatory is for consistency. Like I said, I think it's important that we abide by what the public county health is saying, not just for how we're going to quarantine our kids, but also how we are actually going to have face masks or not. And then finally, someone did mention this, I guess with consistency for our kids, I know that some of these kids are suffering, and it breaks my heart to hear Marnie talk like that. She has wonderful kids, and it makes me sad that they're not enjoying school, because I know that they always have. And it's hard to make decisions for everybody. I mean, it really is, because not everyone, what is good for one kid is not going to be good for every single kid out there. I get that. But for me right now, when I'm making my decisions, I am choosing to look at, hey, CDC is saying face coverings are recommended. The county public health departments are saying, hey, we think face coverings should be in the school. And 3, I know that everyone on every side wants the best for our kids. We would never want anything to happen to our kids. So I guess I'll end with Danielle at the Washington County Public Health. She is wonderful, and I would not want her job in this time because I think it would be pretty miserable. But she mentioned that, we just having to endure just a simple convenience. Because I think for her, she does, there is this feeling for her that, if we don't do something simple now, we're going to have to do harder stuff later.
First of all, I do want to thank the teachers and the administrators for dealing through this very difficult time. As stated at the very beginning, we all know that there is no right answer for the same person. My opinion or my feeling is different than Gabby's or anybody else's. I have read the many emails over the last several weeks that have stated why we should continue with mandatory face coverings. I've read that the kids were not complaining too much, which I would expect because we teach our children to be respectful and follow the rules. I've also read the comments about teachers being more concerned with mask enforcement than over teaching. I know that there are many teachers and parents wanting to keep the mandate of masks, but I also know that there are many teachers and parents that want optional. And there is, no matter what decision is made tonight, I hope that we all can be respectful to others. Again, there's no right answer. I'm an optional person. I have been from the beginning, and I will continue to be optional. But my kids also know that when there is a rule, they will follow it. And my kids will be respectful, just like I will. But again, I am an optional person for both students and teachers.
Okay. Last night, as I was reading email after email regarding COVID and whether to require masks or not require masks, part of me just wanted to throw in the towel and give up. No matter what decision is made tonight, not everyone will be happy, and we as board members have to once again feel like we can't make the right decision. School boards have been tasked with an impossible situation this year. We are trying to find our way through a maze that doesn't seem to have an exit. To make matters worse, to make matters even more disheartening is the fact that this is dividing a once united school district. Instead of respecting one another's choice or opinion, people are choosing to pick sides like we did when we were children. We as adults need to help children navigate through challenging times. Teach them to be compassionate to others. Teach them to compromise is a part of life. You don't always get your way. This pandemic is giving all of us the opportunity to learn and grow as a community, but I feel it is going to end up dividing us. How do we expect our children to learn if we can't lead by example? I believe the face masks should remain required for the following reasons. We are coming into winter, and outdoor recesses or classes won't be feasible. CDC recommends face coverings, social distancing, and hand washing. We can't choose which one of those we don't want to do. We aren't able to social distance in all our classrooms, and the county positivity rates are higher now than when school started. I want to personally thank everyone for taking the time to email or talk to board members in regards to this decision. I urge you, when we walk out of here tonight, that we walk out as a united district, committed to the academic excellence of our students.
So over the last week, as everybody said, I've seen lots and lots and lots of emails. Probably more emails than I want to read. And a lot of people are very loud. Very loud. And as much as you would, I've heard this several times over the last week, it's always one side thinking the other side is loud. And I could tell you who's the loudest, but I won't. This would be a really easy decision if this was my business. I'd have no problem with this at all. This would be really simple because I know what I would do. The reality is, sitting in this seat, I don't get the opportunity to do what I would do. Because it's not about me. It's not about what I think. It's not about what I would like. It's about every one of you and every one of your kids. And because of that, I have to take on a different perspective than my own. And sometimes a perspective that's opposite of your own or different than your own isn't always the easiest thing to do. But what I begin to see and really think about over the last week is this. I have to be willing to move with compassion. And when I say that, you need to understand that that means I have to move with compassion towards everyone. No matter whether you're completely voluntary or whether you think the world's going to fall apart without masks. It doesn't matter. I have to think about all of those things and try to weigh all of those differences. And just about in every argument, I can find a hole. I could find lots of holes with things that were set up here tonight. But the point isn't to find holes. The point is to be able to do what's best for everyone involved. I feel like it's important that we begin to realize the effects that we have not only on each other, but the effects that we have upon the students that come into this building. And I think that we've got to come to a place where we all come to an understanding, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, whatever it might be, we got to come to an understanding that we're here to work together through all of this. And it doesn't matter how strong our feelings are or how strong our opinions are. Those that know me know that I have very strong opinions. But as I've read through everything, and I would say this week, one of the things that I've questioned as well is what Gabby said earlier, and that's, how can we say that we have to follow quarantine rules of public health if we're not going to be willing to follow the others? And that's been a difficult thing for me to try to process, because it doesn't make much sense to follow one and not the other. So at this point, I would be standing to keep the masks as they are at the moment.
I just want to make a couple quick comments. First of all, in order to get on a school board ballot, you have to go out and collect 50 plus signatures. What's the number? Is it 50? And when we all went out and did that to get our names on the ballot, I promise you none of us thought we would be sitting here having to decide the fate of a mask-wearing mandate or not. So I want to tell you that these people are in a situation that we never thought we would sign up for. Yes, we thought we'd have to make hard decisions, but never did we think we would have to make decisions that would ultimately, quite frankly, divide a community like that. It's been challenging, I think, on ourselves as well as on our families as well. When you see people you've known for a long time who duck into another aisle at a grocery store because they don't want to talk to you because they know of how you voted or what your personal beliefs are on something as simple as this, it is challenging. And so I do encourage us to try to figure out how to come a little bit more together as a community and maybe agree to disagree on some of these things. I'll tell you what I struggle with. I struggle with people saying keep the mask mandate because the CDC recommends we wear a mask. The word mandate and recommend seem to contradict each other in that. And if you look at the CDC guidance, which I have read, I can't seem to find anywhere where it says that it's mandated or that it's required. It clearly states recommended and masks may be considered. I find those words all over the place. I also find it's very interesting that the Iowa Department of Education asks us to recommend it and not necessarily require it. The Iowa Department of Public Health said the same thing. I appreciate the letter from the Kelowna City Council, but at the same time, the council didn't even mandate masks in Kelowna. They simply recommended that you wear masks in Kelowna. And so, again, I don't want you to clap for that. I'm just telling you what we struggle with as we take a look at the information. I struggle with what that looks like and how do you resolve that in your own mind. That's a struggle, and I'm not putting you down for that at all. I'm just letting you know that that's hard, because if Kelowna would just come out and say that, that would probably take care of a couple of our school buildings. But I understand that struggle is hard when you're trying to make that decision, and how do you enforce it? I still have that same issue. I also really struggle with a number of faculty members who have contacted us. Many have been very professional. Some have been just quite threatening. If you don't do this, then I'm going to quit, or I'm going to do this. I think that's slightly unprofessional. Come out and share with what you feel and how you feel about that. I'm okay with that. I really do want to listen, and I do value other people's opinion. But to say if you don't fall in line with what I want to do, I think that's really frustrating as well. I do think the Mid-Prairie Middle School and West Elementary need to address some issues on how they're dealing with mask wearing, from what I can hear in the community. And so I will challenge Mr. Pennington, Mr. Polk to try to figure out what that means. But I have heard from a number of parents and a number of folks that are saying that there does seem to be some inconsistencies with how mask wearing is being enforced. And again, just something that I'm hearing. I think we need to shore up and identify what mask breaks look like and commit to them. And so I would challenge the administration to determine what that looks like at the high school level, the middle school level, and the elementaries. Yeah, mask breaks. What does a mask break look like? And so I think there is some discrepancy amongst the faculty. Some are being maybe a little bit more generous with that, and some aren't. And so I'd like to try to figure out a way to do that. I am not, and I did not vote for masks to be mandatory across the board last time, and I wouldn't vote for that this time as well, because the CDC clearly states there are very varying things that we must take into consideration, and there are exceptions to that rule. I would also like us to take a look at if we can 6 feet social distance in some situations. Can we take the masks off and consider that our mask break time? I know that can't happen in the middle school and probably not in the high school, but I believe there are some situations in the elementary where that could happen. And as many of you know, one of my biggest concerns has been preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and those folks wearing masks. I know the CDC clearly states that anyone who's 2 years old and older should wear a mask. But they also state that there may be some issues with pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And I have those same concerns as well. I've seen some of the pictures that teachers sent me of what masks look like for elementary kids. It's disgusting. They're dirty. They're nasty. They're laying on the playground as kids run past, and then they're going to take those things and put them back on their face. I think with preschoolers, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, I think there has to be some consideration, at least a lot of grace extended to those folks in that situation. And so those are some things that I struggle with. Gabby made the point on what % of our faculty want to keep a mask mandate, especially if social distancing does not apply. I would be a foolish business owner to say if 80+% of the people that work for me felt very strongly about something, to go in a completely opposite direction. I would have to think long and hard about that. And I'll be honest, that's one of the struggles that I have with that, is balancing recommendation versus mandatory, and also balancing the effectiveness, the safety, the comfortability of the people who are in the classroom every single day doing what they do and doing what they do well. Because if 87%, or what, I don't remember what the number was, are not feeling safe or frustrated or coming in with high emotions and high stress, I don't know how effective they're going to be at educating our children. And if we're in the business about educating our children, then that's something that I think we need to consider, and that's something that I'm wrestling with as well. And I think the last thing is, I'm actually not going to take a stance on how I would vote tonight, because the document that we received about 1:30, 2 o'clock this afternoon says that the CDC, this is the Iowa Department of Public Health, the CDC is looking at making a different determination based on data. Well, there you go. Who are we going to listen to now, the CDC or the Iowa Department of Public Health? And it was interesting that masks didn't make a difference when it came to quarantining, and now all of a sudden, after 1 p.m. today, they do make a difference pertaining to quarantining, which is something else to think about. But the actual guidance will come out tomorrow. I'm not sure what that guidance will look like. And so am I adopting something where the guidance that comes out tomorrow is going to be different than what we're going to be voting on today? I do know, and I have said this on several occasions, quarantining is going to be the thing that's killing us right now. It's causing teachers to have to teach via Zoom and online, and it's the thing that is really hurting the academic progress, I believe, of our students. And so if there is something that I can do to prevent quarantining, I strongly want to look at that and take into consideration and recommend doing that. The problem is, it says that will come out tomorrow, so I'm not sure what I would be voting on if I don't have the ability to see what the Iowa Department of Public Health is recommending, which is not going to be in line with the CDC. So don't send me any more emails saying follow the CDC if we can do something here to prevent a little bit of the quarantining. Those are things that I've wrestled with as a board member. And I will also say that I do a lot of things with confidence. I feel like I'm a confident, thoughtful person. I read a lot. I feel like I'm well educated. No decision that I've actually made related to COVID I've done with much confidence. I don't pretend to know that a mask mandate is going to be the best. I can't pretend to know that no mask is going to be the best situation. But what I do know is my goal has been to keep kids in school 100% of the time, because I feel that's the safest for our community. and I want to not quarantine as many kids as I can for our community. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the guidance is. If I had to make a decision tonight, I would lean towards what this guidance is asking us, which is to keep a face covering. I still have huge issues with preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade with that. I just have seen too much to feel like there's no way those kids are wearing it well. Those things are not that clean. I wish I could give a little bit more discretion to the preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade teachers to have a little bit more discretion on how that could work in those classrooms. So that's where I'm at. I do want to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts, and I feel like the entire county shared their thoughts with me coming into this meeting on how they felt about this. I'm sorry I did not reply to everyone, but I promise you I did read everyone, including the one that we received at 6:50 tonight, right before. Oh, we got one from 7:13. If you sent one at 7:13, I have not read that one yet, so it looks like I've got a little homework to do when I go back. So I just ask that you be gracious with board members. I ask you to be gracious with people. I know teachers are working their butts off right now, and I appreciate that. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing to educate our kids. But those are some of the things that I've wrestled with, and some of the things that I'll continue to wrestle with as we move forward. So Mary Ann, this is your meeting, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. So at this time, I'm not sure if we need to take a motion, if it's really necessary at this time. Mark? So we can leave it as is? And then we don't, oh, go. Yeah.
Again, to leave it as is, I would be a no vote, because I think there has to be some exceptions. In my mind, that mandate says it's across the board, no exceptions. The CDC is very clear. PE, recess. There are some instances with students that have disabilities and asthma. I think it also says in here, I know you talked about choir, but masks can be considered for choir, music, band, so you can consider it according to the CDC. It sounds like you've already done that. But there are a number of things here that I am not in favor of making a mask mandate across the district. And again, I have issues with lower elementary. So I would be a no vote on the way the motion is written. I also am okay just pressing pause on this for right now, because I want to know what the heck the guidance is going to be that comes out tomorrow, which, believe me, I do not want this to drag on one more day, people. I asked for us to make a decision tonight. Mary Ann knows I was very clear, like, we need to decide tonight. I just don't want to continue to churn this in our community, but at 1 o'clock, things have changed, and I think we need to consider it. It is also very interesting that any student that is out on quarantine, where both the case and the contact were wearing masks, they can return to school if you wish. So if your student just got put in quarantine and both people were wearing a mask, it does say in here that there's a chance they may return to school tomorrow. So that's you don't have a day. You should get that taken care of by 8 a.m. So. What are you doing tonight? I'll stay in my lane. We'll let the administrators work out the details. So that's where I'm at. I don't care. Someone can make an emotion if they wish, but I'm just sharing with you my thoughts.
It's your meeting. You would. What's the question? I'll take just the one. Yep.
I think I don't like the idea of waiting, but at the same time, I don't want to keep visiting this every month. So I guess I don't know what we're wanting to do. I mean, if I had it, I mean, I could make a motion. I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me, but I'm in favor until the county public health department says they're not recommending face coverings for folks in school, then that's when I think that we don't mandate it. But I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but to me, that is an objective, concrete, I mean, it's not, oh, I'm hearing from this many people, oh, I'm hearing more from this side, I want to, let's change this. So, I mean, I'll make a motion. I move that we continue with the face covering mandate, and that we continue with this mandate until the county public health departments say that it is not, that they do not have the recommendation that staff and students wear face coverings in the school building.
Okay. So I have a motion on the table from Gabby. I'll need a second. Yep. You what? Oh. Okay, so your motion is to keep the mandate for the face coverings. Yes. So I still need a second. So I'll entertain a motion for a second. So there is no second, so the motion dies. So now, here we are again. So I am of the belief that the quarantine numbers are going to be just our downfall here. And this actually did come out at 1:30. So I find it very interesting that they're saying that if the person that is positive, and then if those that they come in contact with, if they are wearing a mask, they don't have to quarantine. Both do not. So the person that tests positive does have to stay home, but the person that they came in contact with the mask does not have to. And it came out this afternoon. So I find it very interesting that on this day, on this night that we're going to have this meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon, this guidance comes out from the public health. So this new guidance is supposedly supposed to take effect tomorrow. I've been instructed that more information is to come, so I just find it very interesting that it comes on the day that we're going to have this meeting with regards to whether we keep the face coverings or not. So technically, if this guidance does proceed, then those that did come into contact with somebody and they were wearing a mask and they were within the 6 feet, technically can come back to school. So, but I don't want to keep revisiting this over and over either, but I want to do what's right for our kiddos, and I want to make sure that we get the right guidance, that we get the right information, so we have enough to make an informed decision for our kiddos. So as it stands, what are our options? Especially since the guidance doesn't come until tomorrow. Any thoughts? You have thoughts?
I always have thoughts. Again, my opinion would be I would leave what is on the books because we're not going to vote on that to change it, and I would see what the actual guidance says tomorrow and how it lines up with the CDC or doesn't line up with the CDC, and what the Iowa Department of Public Health is recommending for school districts related to at least quarantining, because again, the issue that I believed that caused the most havoc in our school system was not the positive COVID cases, it was the number of students who were out on quarantine. That's my opinion. I'm not a teacher here, but that was my opinion. And I know that's at least what's causing the biggest concern at the college level as well, as the number of students who are out on quarantining and trying to figure out how to get them their education for the 2 weeks while they're out. So if I can fix the quarantining issue based on the guidance that comes out tomorrow, I would prefer that we do that. If that takes us till our next meeting, October 14th, then we continue with what we're doing right now until October 14th. Believe me, I do not want to do another 2 weeks of everybody and their mom emailing me their thoughts on masks or no masks. I just feel, though, that what happened this afternoon at 1 o'clock does significantly change what we were attempting to do, including the model that we put together. It impacts that model that many of us worked on and made recommendations around as well. That's my recommendation. I'm one of 6 people tonight, usually one of 7, so that's my recommendation. Do I have to make a motion to keep doing what's already on the books? No motion is necessary, yeah. That's what I would recommend, but anybody can make any motion that they want. That's why you're on the school board. So you have the ability to make a motion. If there's a second, we'll put it up for a vote. If there's no second, it'll die on the floor from a lack of a second. So that's my thoughts.
Does anyone have any thoughts?
And remember, quarantine is out of our hands. The school district didn't have any ability to determine who was quarantined and who wasn't quarantined. The public health and the county officials took care of the quarantining. So that's always been out of our hands. There was nothing that we could do to change the quarantine. So we're just following the guidance that they have given us, and it looks like the guidance is going to change. We'll get the actual guidance tomorrow, and then we'll adjust accordingly. And I would argue, I feel very clearly, I know where everybody's at tonight. I wanted to vote tonight, but I just feel like I'm not sure what exactly that I'm voting on, because here it says that only cloth face masks and shields do not count. So do we need to remove the shield option and make it a cloth mandate across the board? You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the guidance is going to say. I would like to take a look at the guidance. That's what I would like to do. I don't disagree with you at all. I don't want this to drag out one more second. Believe me, I do not want this to drag out one more second. Hey, Sophie. Yeah, again, I'm not going to speculate on what a motion would be. Again, I think we need to hear some guidance on that. And see what they're asking us to do. But if there's a way that we can limit quarantine, I would entertain the idea of limiting quarantine students. And so if that says no shields and that's the only way we can do it, then I think we have to at least consider that. I just want to know what they're saying is going to change before I vote on all mask, no mask. That's just my opinion, but anyone can make a motion.
I understand. We do typically have public forums at our meetings, so we do always have to open it up for public forum. I mean, whether you choose to participate in the public forum, I would leave it up to you. But we typically do have public forums at our meetings. Do you want to say something? Okay. Well, yeah, you do.
Yeah, a public forum, you can choose to talk or not talk, so that would be up to the folks attending if they feel like they want to say something again. I agree with you. I feel like I've heard everything that I need to I just want to know what the guidance is. Yeah. That's it. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So we'll just leave it as is for the reevaluation of face coverings until the October 14th, until the new guidance comes out tomorrow? Okay, no, let's just keep it at the October 14th meeting. Okay, so are we ready to move on to the consent items then? Okay, so does anyone want to pull anything from the consent items? If not, all those in favor of approving I just need a motion for someone to approve the consent items as presented. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Gabby. Second? Yep, Jeremy Pickard, and then Gabby seconded. So if no one has any questions, I just entertain, all those in favor of approving the consent items as presented, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. We're going to move on to open enrollment, B2. So as it stands right now, we have approved the open enrollment up until this point. So for me, myself, I'm of the mindset that we stop the open enrollment for now until next year, until we can figure this situation out with regards to our district. That's me for the open enrollment. And then, yeah. Does anyone have any comments? You do? Well, I know you do. Sorry.
Count for funding is October 1st, thank you. So that is rapidly approaching. In case you're wondering about that, we get about $7,000 per student. If they come in after October 1st, we get nothing, correct?
Open enrollment, we can still
bill it. Okay, great. That's a good question. Open enroll into the homeschool assistance program. I feel like we could have some space there.
We may have to hire more staff.
Okay. And virtual academy.
It's technically not closed, but what we are expressing to people is that obviously we contract with Edmentum for our virtual academy. Edmentum last spring, before the full effects of COVID-19, promised us some things. I mean, they made promises about some things because of the, or assurances about how the program would run. Because of COVID-19 and a lot of districts have now contracted with Edmentum. It's my opinion that they overpromised school districts and they took too many school districts on with too many students coming in. So the virtual academy is, if
And then the last question that I have is someone who moves into the district, it wouldn't impact if they moved in, right? It's only those who are coming from the outside in, just making sure I had that clear.
And this also pertains to those that live in our district that want to open and roll out. It's not only open and rolled in, it's also open and rolling out. No, I'm just saying it pertains to open enrollment both ways. It's not just one.
So we would deny someone opening and rolling out if we paused it.
That's certainly up to the motion, if you make a motion. It could be a separate motion, one for opening and rolling in, and one for opening and rolling out.
Okay. Thanks. So I'll make a motion to, after, what's the date? End of the 28th, that we no longer allow open enroll in to Mid-Prairie.
So for me, the reason why I've been watching the open enrollment numbers, and it seems like every time there's somebody coming in, it just seems like that we have to find staff or something to help the people that are coming in, or capacity, and those things right now have been concerning me. And so that's why I think during this time, since we want to work collectively to help work with what we have in our district. That's why I thought that maybe we should stop open enrollment for now until we can figure this out. I mean, that was for me, for the rationale with regards to that. Because I was worried about the open enrollment numbers, because there are quite a few at our meetings, and it just seems like either they're coming into our building or we have to find staff, and it just seems like right now this is not the ideal time. And so that's why I thought, for me, to stop open enrollment in. I'm more concerned about the in versus stopping the enrollment out. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So right now I have a motion for the, as of today, effective to stop the open enrollment in to the Mid-Prairie district. So I would entertain a second. The date that you said, September 28th?
What I heard was you would like it effective today?
In open enrollment, really the October 1st deadline doesn't matter as much, because we can still bill. If a student is coming in after October 1st, we can still bill that district, and vice versa. If we have a student leaves and open enrolls to another district, they can still bill us for open enrollment.
Is there there's been no restrictions from the Department of Education about this?
As long as the two districts agree, we can allow it to happen. It's just that this year it's happening so late that I wanted to make sure the board was still okay with that. Because normally most of it happens before school starts.
Are you okay with it?
I would say it's always been my philosophy, and that's why I wanted to check with you. It's always been my philosophy that if a family finds a different situation that they feel is best for them, that I feel that, again, it's just my personal opinion, that we should honor them. Because why would I want someone to stay where they feel that they're stuck, so to speak? And why would I not, if they feel they have a situation that's better for their family, who am I to say that's not better for your family? If they believe it, then I want to support that. Even though open and roll out, I would hate to lose that money. Absolutely. But again, I've always believed that parents have the right to choose what's best for their children and try to accommodate that in most any way that I can. But that's just my opinion. I just wanted to make sure that that opinion wasn't running counter to the majority of the school. Yes, I still feel that way. Even though it's late, I still feel that way. If
I guess we do. We have a shortage of subs. If we have teachers that go on quarantine, we have problems in buildings finding teachers. My thinking is kind of along with Mary Ann's. If we don't allow people to open enroll, the teachers that we have in the district don't have to go. I think most of them are with ELPs, maybe, or not, lately.
You mean special education?
Yeah, special education. That
I wouldn't say
require
they're all
one-on-one.
Special education. Obviously, Mid-Prairie has a reputation for providing outstanding special ed services. So we do.
Yes, we do.
We do receive families that are looking for special ed services. Obviously, Mid-Prairie is one district that they look for.
But then that takes teachers away from the sub list sometimes. So then we lose teachers on the sub list to teachers that need to be one-on-one with a student.
Can they be denied individually?
They can be denied now because they're after the deadline.
So if we don't have the staff to meet the need, then we don't have to accept it.
For instance, in special education, if we don't have an appropriate program, we can deny them, yes.
Yes. So I'm under the impression that if somebody really doesn't want to be here and they can't, like, why would I force them to be here? But I get what Mark is saying. I was under the understanding he would like to limit that, but maybe I was misunderstanding that. I do think right now adding a number of kids into the environment is challenging. But I also don't want a family member to be stuck in a spot that they don't want to be in. So.
Okay, so I have a motion to stop the open enrollment in our school district during this time until next year. So I would entertain a second. So it dies on the floor. Okay, so now we just leave the open enrollment as is? Okay, so we keep going as is. Are we all good with that? Okay, so we're gonna move on to B3, the open road driving contract.
Obviously, district students can take
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to, for the agreement between Mid-Prairie Schools and Open Road Driving School.com. Thanks, Gabby. I'll entertain a second. Thanks, Mary. So does anyone have any questions with regards to the contract and proposal agreement between Mid-Prairie Schools and Open Road Driving School? If not, all those in favor of approving the contract and proposal agreement between Mid-Prairie Schools and Open Road Driving School.com say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. There you go. So it's approved. So we're going to move on to early outs, B4. So if we decide to wait and table this until the guidance comes out for tomorrow from Public Health, does that give us enough time for the school board meeting on the 12th to determine, we just lose the 7th? Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
If we're going to postpone to kind of see what CDC and all that stuff, I'd say we should wait until the next board meeting to decide.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes.
Thanks, Mary. So I have a motion to table this until the new guidance from the CDC, or from the Iowa Public Health comes out, and we can determine this at our October 12th meeting. Does anyone want to second that motion? Thanks, Denise. Does anyone have any questions with regards to the motion that's on the table? So if not, all those in favor of tabling this with regards to the early outs until the guidance from the Iowa Public Health comes out tomorrow, and revisiting this issue on our next board meeting on October 12th, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Are we good? Okay. So we're going to move on to C1, the resolution for special ed program additional allowable growth. Thanks, Gabby. I'll entertain a second. Oh, Denise. Thanks, Denise. So this is a roll call vote?
Yes. Jeremy Google? Yes. Jeremy Picker? Yes. Mary Allred? Yes. Denise Chittick? Yes. Mary Ann Slava?
Yes.
Gabrielle Trevor? Yes. Motion passes 6-0 with Joe Demeter absent.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the resolution for the limited English proficiency program additional allowable growth.
Again, this is another resolution that I'm asking you to consider. This one covers our limited English proficiency program. Again, students that are identified as having limited English proficiency have additional weighting attached to them. So that brings in extra funds so that we may provide services for those students. And obviously, that weighting doesn't cover all the costs of the program. And so, again, this allows us to go to the school budget review committee and ask for additional allowable growth to again, make up the difference between the actual cost and the cost of the weighting we bring in. And again, it's for our allowable growth, for our unspent balances, to protect our unspent balances. And that figure is $15,927.86.
Is that right?
That is correct.
That is correct.
The reason why we use this number as an exact is because the program is smaller, and it's dollars actually expended, and we know what dollars those were.
What was last year's? Do you remember?
What's that?
Do you remember last year's numbers?
Last year's number was around 21,000.
Okay. Okay.
I move that we approve resolution number 0928-202, giving the superintendent authorities that are present the school budget review committee for additional allowable growth in the amount of $15,927.86 to cover the deficit in the limited English proficiency fund.
Thanks, Gabby. I'll entertain a second. Thanks, Mary. So does anyone have any questions? If not, we'll go ahead and take roll call.
Okay, roll call vote, Gabriella Frederick? Yes.
Yes.
Denise Chittick. Yes. Mary Allred. Yes. Jeremy Pickard. Yes. Jeremy Google. Jody Meaders absent. Motion carries 6-0.
So we're going to move on to D's announcements and suggestions for the next meeting.
Sounds like base coverings.
Okay. So do we have anything else? If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
We could do 500 series school board policy. We could put it on the agenda.
Okay, how about that? We'll do the 500 series. We'll put that on the agenda. If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Okay.